Physical Science, PS 27.3. Section 3, Groundwater. The main idea for this section: water can seep into the ground and be stored in porous rock as an important resource. Your central questions: why is groundwater an important natural resource? Where is it stored and how can it be obtained? And do groundwater supplies meet our current demands? About 97% of all water on Earth is salt water, meaning we can't drink that. 2% of our Earth's fresh water is frozen solid. Still, can't drink it. Only 1% of Earth's fresh water is in lakes, rivers, and underground. Fresh water moves from water and land to the atmosphere and back through a series of processes called the water cycle. Infiltration is the process by which water enters Earth to become groundwater below the surface.
And back to Earth again. Water evaporates from oceans, lakes, rivers, puddles, and even the ground. It then rises into Earth's atmosphere as water vapor, which condenses to form droplets and ice crystals in clouds. When the water droplets are heavy enough, they fall back to Earth as precipitation. Rainwater runs off the surface, back to the rivers, lakes, and finally the ocean.
Water seeps down through surface layers into the unsaturated zone, where pores are filled with air and water. Water completely fills these pores in the saturated zone. The water table is the boundary that separates those two zones. A rock unit that can transmit water through its pore space is called an aquifer, and it's extremely important to our survival on this planet. A rock that slows or stops infiltration is called an aquitard because it slows the growth. The porosity of a material is the percentage of the material's total volume of pore space. Permeability is a measure of how well a fluid can pass through a material. Wells are holes dug or drilled into earth. Much like surface water, groundwater flows downhill.
As areas become more populated, more water wells are often drilled. This lowers the water table, causing some existing water wells to go dry.
Pollutants that are spilled or dumped on the ground enter our groundwater system through infiltration. As you can see here, we have pollution, comes down, seeps down into our water table, and then goes up to your and my drinking water. So pollution is a real problem, and that's something where we were talking about soil earlier in one of our chapters, and one of the ways that we can help with soil erosion is through fertilizers. Well, fertilizers are still part of a chemical process, and too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right? So too much of that getting into our water table and causing an imbalance can actually be detrimental to our health. So we'll have food, but we won't have water. Science is all about maintaining a balance.
Did you know that right under my feet there are thousands and thousands of gallons of water?
This groundwater is found in aquifers. Aquifers are a combination of gravel, rock, and sand. These rocky stones hold the water in the soil. Builders can drill wells into these aquifers to provide water for homes, farms, and industries.
Underground aquifers contain far more water than all the surface reservoirs and lakes in the U.S., including the Great Lakes. In some areas, groundwater is the only source of fresh water for people and ecosystems. It does get filled back in, but slowly, over hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. Unfortunately, right now, people are pulling the water out of aquifers faster than nature can refill them.
But now, with new technology, like NASA's GRACE mission, which can measure groundwater levels from space, we can really see what we are doing to our groundwater.
We can see groundwater from space? How is that possible?
The GRACE satellites detect small changes in the Earth's gravity, caused by water moving on and beneath the Earth's surface. Thanks to these satellites, we can now detect where groundwater supplies are being threatened. For example, This map shows the area where aquifers are being sucked dry to water crops during an intense drought. Because of this, the ground in Central Valley of California is actually sinking.
Besides monitoring the level of aquifers, we're improving the ways we can fill them back up. One way is what is called groundwater recharge. That's when we use ponds or wells to put water back into depleted groundwater aquifers. This is really useful during a drought.
Some places, like Santa Clara County, California, are experimenting with ways to put water back into their underground aquifers. Normally, the Santa Clara Valley Water District puts over 30 billion gallons of water back into their aquifers each year. Now they have future plans to use recycled water to recharge their aquifers. This may mean an additional 15 billion gallons of water for their aquifers.
What other solutions can you come up with to make sure that we have enough water in our underground aquifers for thousands of years to come?
Water. It is what has transformed the high plains of the United States into the most fertile land in the world. The crops produced in the central states of America help stabilize world food production, preventing tragic famine from becoming widespread. The water used to nourish crops in the Midwest doesn't come from the sky or glacial melting. It is pumped from deep underground from an ancient aquifer. The Ogallala Aquifer was created millions of years ago and, in many places, recharges too slowly to measure. It is, essentially, fossil water.
I may be asking you questions on one of your pop quizzes about the Ogallala Aquifer.
The Ogallala Aquifer is over 174,000 square miles, crossing the border of 8 Midwestern states, although 20% of this land area has sand dunes above, which cannot support agriculture. Depth of the water is from a few feet to 1,000 feet down, with over 170,000 diesel-electric wells, pumping 14 billion gallons per day in the growing season to irrigate crops. The water that irrigates these crops is millions of years old, just as we depend on oil and coal that were formed eons ago. The water that supplies 1 bite out of our 3 in the American diet is a non-renewable natural resource. Unfortunately, for many people in the world, extreme weather has created unpredictable food harvests, food insecurity, and hunger. Countries not blessed with abundant supply of groundwater are at the whim of nature and the goodwill of other nations.